Hello and welcome one, welcome all to our first episode of Election Watch Jamaica. All right, if you're a returning viewer, listener, subscriber, welcome back, welcome back. If you're new to this channel, welcome, welcome. Voices in Education is a safe space where we share and learn from each other. We do that in a respectful way, so we do not bash anyone, we do not disrespect or belittle or defame anyone. And we understand that we share different views, all right, about a particular topic, and that is totally okay. We also understand that there is so much richness in diversity. So we welcome you to this platform and we welcome you in the context of your participation. We want to hear from you. So please comment in the chat, and we'll open the WhatsApp call-in line so that we can hear from you as well. So, when will the elections be called? That's the big question. When will Andrew Holness call the general election? All right, and so would love to hear from you in this context. And I am going to put forward a perspective just based on what happened, yesterday, regarding, their conference and just what, the Prime Minister shared in that context. So would love to hear your views. And I know that, some persons, they have been saying, call it, Andrew, call it. And so when will the Prime Minister call the general election? So that's a big question. So just to give you some context here, just before I open the phone line and, share, I want to provide you with some context regarding, what the Prime Minister and party leader of the JLP shared. All right, so we're going to get to that in a little bit here. All right, so he shared quite a lot, I'll say, or a few things in the context of, what Jamaicans should expect. So, and some promises, I'll say, while asking Jamaica to give him another term, so a third term in office. All right, so just to share that update with you in that context. And so, in the context of the speech, I would say a lot of it touched on, road in term water supply, JPS, so water supply, NWC, JPS, and I'll say around that the $20,000 there. I believe. Yes, so I'm checking my notes because I actually took notes. So I definitely want to check with my notes in that context, and I'm going to share with you, some of the promises that were made in that context. And, a big one coming out of that conversation is that following the next budget, right? So that's in March, following, the next budget in March, is that your JPS, the GCT on JPS, so the GCT on electricity, so your JPS bill will move from 15% to 7% in the context of, the GCT. So just to share that information with you, there were some other information in the context of the $20,000, right? And so in that context, persons who got that, what the Prime Minister shared yesterday was that those persons who weren't covered, all right, in that aspect, they will be subject to a needs assessment, and perhaps they can qualify for that $20,000 as well. And from that point they will get them in to a program to ensure that they're captured. So in essence, the Prime Minister want everyone to, or most persons, to benefit from that $20,000. And so that was something that was highlighted in that context. And so starting in February, if you're 18 or older and you're not on part, in terms of the national insurance scheme or the social pension, you'll qualify for that 20K. And so, in this context, the Prime Minister is essentially trying to capture most of the Jamaican people in this context to ensure that they can benefit. So, that was something that was shared there. All right. And in that context, so that was the reverse tax credit, where persons were getting back that 20K, all right, in that context. But what the Prime Minister shared yesterday was that he was going to extend that to several persons. And so in that context, the extension will be for persons who are 18 or older and not on part NIS or social pensions. You'll qualify for that 20K, and that is subject to a needs assessment. So just to let you know about that as well. Another big one I really appreciate was in the context of, school children in rural areas. So what the Prime Minister shared was that, there's going to be some equity. And so the equity, and let me just go there, guys. Just give me a second. I'm just checking in on my notes here. There's going to be some equity in the context of, accessing transportation. All right. So what he shared there yesterday was that, students in urban areas, I guess they benefit, right, from transportation in terms of a subsidized, transportation for school children. And so not necessarily the case in rural areas. And so school children in rural areas will benefit from a reduced transportation cost. So they're going to subsidize that. And so, based on his presentation, he shared that 100 new buses are going to be allocated to rural areas. All right. And an important part here is that there's going to be some private public partnership with PPV operators. And so they'll implement a cashless payment system for students so that they can pay, use, I guess, a card to pay PPV. And in that context, they can benefit. So this equity in the context of public transportation is a welcome news from the Prime Minister and, party leader there of the Jamaica Labour Party. So he was sharing this information in the context of, saying to Jamaica, we have done the work in terms of improving the economy. We're now trying to get to you, the people, and we're asking you for another term in office. And so another important news was regarding, the NWC Water Commission. So pensioners and vulnerable Jamaicans disconnected from NWC for over 2 years will have their debts fully written off and reconnection fees waived. All right. So in that context, let me just check here. I believe that is going to be for about 2 months. I'm just checking my notes here, guys, based on what was shared. I'm just checking here. So this will begin January 2nd. That's what I have in my notes. That amnesty for 2 months. All right. So that's with the NWC National Water Commission. All right. So just to let you know that information there. And there was also another aspect to it. So for example, I'm just checking my notes here. So customers who have been off for 6 months, all right, in terms of their water commission, their water bill, they will benefit from a discount of 50%. And what the Prime Minister is saying, if pensioners, say for example, the disconnection was due to a faulty, like a leaking system, then NWC will fix that. All right. And so I guess to prevent that issue from recurring. So guys, welcome. I'll be in the chat in a little bit. I'm just sharing the information. Then I'll let you know my view in the context of, what the Prime Minister shared and, in terms of when this general election will be called. All right, so I believe I shared about, JPS already in terms of the percentage moving from 15% on GCT to 7%, and that will come after the budget. All right, so just some of the things that were shared, and he spoke about tourism as well, and also that is going to partner to build social housing for needy tourism workers. So that is something that was shared. There was also some emphasis on the fact that, education is free. And while there is a reemergence of, auxiliary fees, that should not prevent children from attending or accessing education. He also mentioned that they'll be utilizing truancy officers to go out and check on students who are missing school to find out what is the situation and how they can support students to get back into school. So just some of the updates there, all right, in the context of, the Prime Minister. And if I'm missing anything, I suppose you will definitely share with me in the chat. So given this context, right, I suspect that the Prime Minister is going to call the elections. So when? Can you guess? I am suspecting suspecting now, this is just my view, I am suspecting that the Prime Minister is going to call this election after the budget presentation. So March, April, May, about June, July. That's my estimation in terms of calling the election. It will be somewhere there because what the Prime Minister shared in the context of, what the party wants to do to ensure that the citizens of Jamaica are seen and benefiting, right? I feel that he needs some time. So for that needs assessment, for example, the persons who aren't captured, right? In, for example, with NIS on the PAD program, that you would like to access that 20K and to give time to carry out a needs assessment and the process and for them to benefit from that money. I am saying that we're getting an election closer to summertime, June, July, there-ish. That's my view. And the Prime Minister, the JLP, they will need to get on the ground. And if it is that Jamaicans too, they're going to benefit from the JPS in terms of the tax reduction, right? The Prime Minister is going to wait for that moment so that Jamaicans can feel their impact, because a big thing that is on the ground is that people, they're hearing that the economy is good, but they're not seeing that for themselves when they show up in the supermarkets, when they, the bills, everything, when you go to the gas station, it's not there. Reles, welcome. Happy to have you here. And so that is something. So given these factors, I am believing that the Prime Minister is going to go as close as possible to the summer. I'm thinking it's going to be June, July, where that election is going to be called. If you were listening to his speech or his presentation, he was there saying, there are so many other things that I can share, like he was like, should I share it or should I hold it? And it was like, I'm going to hold it. So those things that he's going to implement, he would want the people to say, yes, he said this and he did it, right? And so I am anticipating that the election, we're not going to get a February one, like, like one of the times, and we're going to get it closer to the summer months, all right? So perhaps June, July, there-ish, I am thinking, in the context of the elections. All right, because he wants to go to the people, give them what he can give, and say, here, we have delivered these things. And then he's going to use the budget presentation, I believe, to deliver some more goods, and then perhaps use that to campaign to say, if you put me in office, these are the things that we promised you, hold us accountable. We said we were going to give you this for JPS, for NWSC, check, check, check. We said we were going to extend, the 20K to persons who weren't captured on the PAD program. So if you're 18 or older, once you're not on PAD, once you're not on receiving any benefits in the context of social pensions, NIS, you can still benefit from that 20K. So once we get that information, we'll be here to share that with you guys in terms of how the process works. All right, so that's my suggestion, or my view in the context of when this election will be called. It's going to be later, not early, and it's going to go down to, I think, close to the summer months. Something that I also want to highlight here is that an election, yes, I believe is constitutional due every 5 years, but it's based on the first sitting of Parliament, all right, after the general election. So I suspect it's going to be constitutionally due somewhere perhaps in mid-September. And so that is something for us to factor in the context of the sitting of Parliament. I don't know the exact date, but I could check on that. But yeah, just from recollection there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the WhatsApp number in the chat. And I would love to hear from you guys. So you can definitely give us a WhatsApp call. All right. Would like to hear from you in the context of, when you believe this general elections will be called. Would love to hear your views. So don't be afraid to give us a call and, would love to hear from you. So welcome one, welcome all. So happy to have you here. If this is your first time here, welcome to the Voices in Education. And again, we don't bash anyone, we don't belittle anyone, we don't disrespect anyone or defame. We understand that we share different views and it's okay. Just keep it real and respectful. Avi, are you here? All right, not hearing Avi just yet. So, guys, you can share in the chat or you can definitely give us a call. Would love to hear your views in the context of when the elections will be called in Jamaica. What do you make of it? All right, would love to hear from you in this context. So let me just check in here. All right, not seeing any comments yet in the chat. But that's just my thinking there that the prime minister is going to call the elections, closer to the summer months. All right, in that context, given what he would like to do before doing that. Will the prime minister get another term? That's the big question. Or is it a case where time come? That's another question. So would love to hear from you in this context. So, welcome one, welcome all. So happy to have you guys here with us. Really appreciate you being here. All right, let me just take a look here. I'm not getting any new comments here at this point. Don't be afraid to comment. Don't be afraid to give us a call. You don't have to share your name if you're not comfortable. All right, so while we're waiting to see if persons are going to call, just to also share that, there were other speakers who shared and echoed the call in terms of giving the JLP another term in office. All right, and so we had, for example, the Prime Minister's wife, Juliet Holness. So Juliet Holness was sharing along the lines of, women empowerment and also appealing to the voters, the women, all right, in the context of giving the administration another term in office. And so there were echoes in terms of what the party has achieved since it has been in power. All right, so that context was clear. I mean, speaker after speaker, would come and reemphasize those points, and I felt that that was good in terms of cementing the message. So their supporters, they should leave with at least knowing what the party has done so far, and that too. Another significant contribution was from the mayor of Montego Bay. And so a part of his presentation, he shared, that when he went into office, they got, they inherited a 7 billion debt to JPS. And, they were able, I guess, in terms of the administration and, they were able to clear that, and so they're able to get, other supports or request appropriate services from JPS, for example. And then we had Juliet Cuthbert Flynn as well, who was there talking and, kind of attacked, the opposition leader, Mr. Mark Golding. And, very consistent too in sharing some of the things that, the party has done. And I believe it was Juliet who made reference to Mr. Golding, holding chains around a Rasta man's neck, I believe. Yes, and so in that context, she was portraying really the opposition leader in that context. And so next to we had Floyd Green. And so Floyd Green, the agricultural minister, like he spoke about leadership and saying that, what I guess Jamaica didn't have was, I guess, leadership in terms of, improving the country. All right. And so he was sharing that the PNP, they identified the problem, but they weren't able to fix it. And he kind of, put that around in the context of leadership. He talked about, the farm roads that his administration have improved, spoke about the number of titles handed out, land titles. And so that was something that for sure, a lot of persons were listening and, just hearing in terms of what had happened, all right, under his administration. There was also Kamina Johnson Smith, you know, the foreign affairs minister, all right, in terms of sharing, that Jamaica was looking good. I think that's predominantly what I got from Kamina, that Jamaica was looking good on the international stage in the context of, for example, countries wanted to find out, how Jamaica did so well, for example, in COVID, I believe. And so she also touched on the fact that, their administration, they were able to get the support from the diaspora, while the other side, the PMP, they were trying to divide the diaspora. And then Kerencia Morrison, all right. She shared, and she's kind of like a debater. All right. She shared in terms of, I guess, skills training for the youth. So that was something to an employment opportunities that the government has provided, particularly via Hard Trust NTA, and saying that that was free. She spoke about the sixth form pathways program and SLB. That was a big one too. The removal of guarantors, all right, to receive loans from student loan and scholarships, I guess, and she touched on the constituency development fund. And so that's I guess about it. I don't know if I am forgetting anything at this point, but those were some of the other speakers in that context. And again, given what this administration, let me just check here, given what this administration is really wanting in the context of a next term, and the things that I heard they wanted to implement, I feel that they need some more time in the context of, getting these things in place where Jamaicans can benefit before calling the election. So again, I believe the elections will be closer to the summer months after the budget presentation, and where the prime minister can say, okay, remember at our conference we said we're going to do these things. No, we have done these things. Here are some more things that we are going to do over the next term in office, right? And so I feel like it's like doing these things now and then trying to put forward some proposals in terms of moving forward, I guess their manifesto in terms of moving forward, and then saying, okay, let us see if we can strike when the iron is hot. So I feel like that's the move, and that's just my perspective, just based on what, was shared at their conference. Because you get the feeling too that the prime minister, he had more to share just by what he said, but he's going to hold on to those things, right? And so again, too, another big aspect here is that the prime minister is, or the party seemingly want to give this $20,000 to almost every Jamaican. And I say almost because they're going to subject it to a needs assessment. So if you did not get that, what do they call, reverse income tax credit, I suppose, that 20K, and you're 18 years and or older, right? And you're not captured on the part program, you're not on NIS, you're not receiving social pensions, then you'll be subject to a needs assessment, and then you can perhaps qualify for that. And so that is something too where I am thinking it's going to take some time in terms of getting that needs assessment done. So the Prime Minister would want to ensure that Jamaicans are actually benefiting. And so with Water Commission, that one I believe is January 2nd, just from recollection here. The GCT reduction for JPS, that takes effect, I believe, after the budget presentation or somewhere there. And so again, these are significant in the context of impact. And again, given these contexts, I believe that the elections will be closer to the summer months. So would love to hear your views, but not seeing any comments in the chat here. And I'm not getting any calls. So in a little bit, we're going to wrap this one up. All right. But I really appreciate you being here. So thank you so much for, being here, for listening. And again, we'll be here. So we're on, this is our first episode of Election Watch, and we're going to continue until the elections are called. So if this is your first time here, thank you so much for being here. Would appreciate if you could hit that subscription button. All right, if you could turn on your post notification bell. All right, and so that you do not miss any updates when we go live. All right, so that's important too. And share, tell a friend to tell another friend about the Voices in Education. We do quite a lot here in the context of, programs, so current affairs, sports, just about every and anything, education, where we can learn from each other, right? So we're not here to disrespect and be mean. So if you're JLP, PNP, no P, we want to hear. We want to hear from you. So what we do, we want you to have a voice. So it's not just my voice, it's voices. So we want to hear from you. We want to hear your views so that we can learn from each other. So I'm just checking in here. Not seeing any comments coming in. Let me check. And I'm not seeing any calls, not missing any. All right. So thank you guys so much. Again, really, really appreciate, your support as we continue to grow stronger together. We ask that you continue to support us the best way you can. And the easiest way is to like, share, and subscribe. All right, guys, blessings and love. And again, thanks for coming over. Really appreciate the support. And I will see you in the next live. Bye for now.